I didn't introduce myself earlier, but I'm Joanne Hinnendale. I'm the bar's CLE director, and I also oversee the Supreme Court's NHMCLE department. And I'm just going to give you a brief overview, and then I'm going to turn it over to Carol Brooks, who is the program coordinator for NHMCLE. As most of you know, the Supreme Court Rule 53 is the New Hampshire minimum continuing legal education rule adopted over 20 years ago. In fact, I think it's been 30. The rule requires all active bar members to participate in additional legal study throughout their careers. As mentioned, the New Hampshire Supreme Court, the Supreme Court's NHMCLE board, which we are very, Carol and I work very closely with, and the Bar Association, including all the people you see up here, have worked really hard together to get all requirements simplified, as you've been hearing. I do want to especially thank Russ Hilliard, who is the chair of the board for the past couple of years, and Doug Chamberlain, who was the chair, I think, from the very beginning until last year when he stepped down. And also Eileen Fox at the court, who was very instrumental in helping Janine McCoy, the two of them back and forth redlining a document that I think Rule 53 used to be about 20 pages, and I think it's now down to 4, so it should be really simple for everyone now. So anyway, every active member should have an art account, and new members need to create an art account. Has everybody in the room worked in an art account or opened an art account? Yes, everybody? Okay. If you haven't, then you will have, if you're a bar member, you'll have to create one for the year coming up. So to begin with, there's 4 main reasons to go to ART, which is the attorney reporting tool. And Carol will cover those in a short time. They include reading your ART account, entering a non-NHBA course, and correcting your record, and then finally filing your affidavit. I'm going to turn it over to Carol because I know I'll just get gobbled up in the weeds, and you don't want to hear that. I do want you to know that we are going to plan clinics in some of the different counties. We haven't planned them yet, but we're working on it, and we are going to do a couple of replays later this month. So if you know someone who would like to attend, to have them watch for the announcements. And then this video also is going to be clipped up and put on YouTube so that if people need to refresh their memory, you can't receive credit for it if it's on YouTube, but because there's no tracking device, but obviously you will all receive credits. So now I'm going to have Carol Brooks come up and talk about the 4 topics we just mentioned.
All right, Joe mentioned we'd be going into the weeds. My name is Carol Brooks, Program Director with NHMCLE, and what I'd like to say is you really don't need high hip waders, just maybe to the knees for today, because we're not going to go into the deep water. We're going to do a flyover and give you a sense of what is there. Joe asked how many people were familiar with ART, and I saw heads nodding, but how many people here are attorneys? Just raise your hands. Okay, and how many are admin for attorneys? Okay. The attorneys, as was mentioned earlier, are responsible for their ART account. They may delegate if they so choose, and those of you who are the admin people are of a noble purpose to carry out that responsibility for the attorney. How many people in here are brand new to ART and have never gone near it? Anybody? Okay, we have a few. So I will touch on what you need to do briefly and provide you the resources to go further to get you started. And of the people that are familiar with ART, how many have briefly dabbled in it? Raise your hands. And how many have gone through a whole year and filing the affidavit and have weathered the last storm? Okay, great. Thank you. So we've got a span of people who are familiar there. In your materials, starting on page 47 is the cover sheet for the slides I'm going to talk about. And then beginning on page 48 is the NHMCLE webpage. That page is found on the BAR website, and you'll see in the upper left-hand corner of your slide that there is a web address. You can go to the BAR website or go directly to the NHMCLE page by entering the nhbar.org/NHMCLE. That will bring you right to the NHMCLE webpage. Second point I want to make, you're on the BAR website, but in the web page for NHMCLE, you'll see a cross through the member login at the top. You do not get to ART by logging in your BAR credentials. You get to ART by using your created ART username and passwords, so that's why you will see that member login crossed out on the top of your slide. Next, on the web page, we've distilled the web page and the information for you to some 3 essential areas. The next box you'd want to look at says NH Supreme Court Rule 53. It's just below the blue headline banner, and it distills Rule 53, as Rule 53 now reads, to the essential of what you need each year. 720 minutes, which is 12 hours, always has been, needs to be in a subject matter of ethics or non-ethics. Of the 720 minutes of subject matter, at least 2 hours need to be in the ethics subject matter area. Could be more, but at least 2 hours or 120 minutes. Separate category altogether, apologize. In the weeds, you come across frogs, and I've just acquired one in my throat, so. A minimum of 50% of all the courses you take have to be in a category of a course setting which we call live. Right now, we're in a live classroom course setting. You may listen in the convenience of your office to a webcast that is live on your computer going on in a different situation, and that can be live. Or you may take a course from any provider, and it may be a pre-recording. You could slip it into the CD slot in your car and listen to Tax CLE on your hour drive to Coos County Courthouse. That would be non-live. But in the ART system and in Rule 53 only requires you to get at least 50% or 6 hours, 360 minutes in a live course setting. So 2 different categories, subject matter, ethics, non-ethics, have to add up to 720 minutes. And of all of those, at least 360 minutes of ethics or non-ethics has to be in a live course setting. The next section that you'll see on that page is the blue-gray box at the bottom. Oh, all right. I'll take one question, but I'm going to ask for questions to be held after this at the end of each section, and I'll provide ample opportunity. Yes?
Can you just clarify the live? If you watch a live webinar, obviously that's live, but if you watch a playback of a webinar, is that considered live as well, or no?
Joe, do you want to have that?
For the BARS programs, if they are under the rule, if they're considered interactive, for instance, online programs may not have a live speaker, but if you can submit questions back and forth, they consider that interactive, so they qualify as live. In some of the old rules, it used to be that you had to attend something that was organized as a CLE in a certain place. In-house programs that are restricted do not normally qualify as live, but online stuff, if it's interactive, you can, the BARS programs, our online programs, we only do it because most of the providers do it, and we had to stay competitive with them, so.
You know, in my scenario, if you're listening to a tax CLE and it's in the CD player in your car, you may be talking back to it periodically, but it's still non-live because you don't have the faculty member there to answer questions. And having the ability to ask a question of a faculty member is one of the key elements. Thank you, Joe. So what you will see in the blue-gray box is an art alert. We will always provide you with some dates, key dates and deadlines, which is coming up. The end of this reporting year ends June 30th of 2016. It began July 1st of 14. That is the NHMCLE year. Key compliance areas. You need to, if you're brand new, have an activated ART account. So create and sign up an ART account. We'll touch on that in a minute. Enter all the required courses to meet all the categories of Rule 53. And last, once you've entered the categories, attended the course, entered the categories, then at the end of the year, starting around June 1st this year, you will be able to file the affidavit of compliance to confirm. Now, for those of you who may have been around for a while in the bar like I have, in the old days, we used to have paper forms. We would fill out every course, every minute or hour, and we'd have to calculate on the back. The ART program does all of this for you. You just need to enter the course, and we'll touch on that. I'm going to flip to the next screen, which is the bottom half of the NHMCLE webpage. I've highlighted a couple of areas. One is ART how-to videos. For those of you who are brand new to ART, there is a key video you should watch. It's how to sign up or create or activate your ART account. You only need to do this for the first time and create your ART username and password, and then forever after, you go back into the ART website and you log in with that username and password. If you try to just log in the first time without creating anything, with your bar credentials, they won't work. So you need to, if you're new to ART, create that for the first time. There's two other current videos. One is how to enter a new non-bar course into your ART record. And the third is how to read my record page. And that's probably the deepest number of reads we're going to go into today, just so you can understand how ART is counting things up. We do anticipate a couple of other short videos. One is how to correct an entry. If you've made an entry and whoops, I really didn't attend that 6-hour program for 6 hours. I had to leave early because I was called to court. You would then diminish the number of minutes that you had to resemble your actual attendance time. And the other video that we're working on now is how to file the affidavit at the end of the year. When you've reached all your credits and all the different categories, then the last step is to file the affidavit of compliance, and we'll talk about that today. There are 10 other resource tabs on the bottom of this web page. I won't go into all of them. They're all resources, and when you click on each one, they expand to provide some additional information, so that if you're doing this at 8 o'clock at night and we've left the office, we're not available to answer your call, you may want to look at this section. And the NHMCLE ART Resource Guides is the last red box on the page that provides an awful lot of information concerning how to qualify a course providers, requirements, notices, and tips. And at this point, I'll take any questions on this web page if you have them.
Hi, this is very helpful, but I have a question. Why can't we use our regular ID and password, first of all?
Art,
Susan
go ahead,
will
Sue.
talk about
We are working on that. We are
Okay.
absolutely working on a single sign-on. It's one of the next priorities, once we get the dashboard rolled out, is to actually make it so that you
Single
sign into the bar's website and you can click right over to ART without entering another password.
That will be great. Second question, how do I know if I have already set up an ART account?
If you have entered and activated an ART account, go to the login page, which we're going to go through next, and enter the information for your username and password. If you have already activated an ART account and those are the correct username and passwords, the next page you will see will be the welcome page to art and the My Record page. It's a self-test. And if you get nowhere, it's a different username and password until we consolidate.
Did you file last year? Did you file last year electronically? Okay, that's okay.
Okay. The other thing that you can do is send us an email or call. I hesitate to say call to all 5,500 of you in May and June because there may be a bit of a lag getting back to you with many phone calls. But you can send us an email and we will provide you information on what your username is. And we can't see your password, but we can reset it for you, okay? And our email address is nhmcle@nhbar.org.
Oh, he's
I
not
just
present.
want to, can I just add, there are links to forgot your password and forgot your username on the website. So if you click on the forgot your username link and you do not have an account, it will email you and tell you that you do not have an account. So it does have that functionality built into it.
Great, thanks, Sue.
Any other questions?
this
Oh,
one.
here we go.
Hi. Hi. I wanted to know how many credits can be rolled forward to the following year?
Okay.
And is there a number of credits that have to be done within that calendar year?
Yes and yes. And if you would hold that thought, I'm going to address it when we get to the My Record page and talk about what you need for this year, as shown on the 2015-16 My Record page, and what the maximum carryovers are. But good question, thank you. And move on now to the welcome page. When you get to the art web page and you've gone to nhmcle.org, you will see a welcome page. If you are new to art, you will see the red arrow. Oops, did it not go?
Go back one.
There we go. Sorry, I double-clicked. My apologies. If you are new to art, follow the hypertext that you can click on your home computer, and that will take you through to the sign-up process of creating a username and a password. If you are already an existing art user with a username and password, you will see the red box on the top left-hand side of the login on the toolbar. That's the login button. Click on that, and that will bring you to the actual login page. And that is, it looks like this. Sign-up page looks like this as well. So it's critical, if you've already created your art account, put in your created username, your art password, and then click on login. If you're a new member, you're going to follow the prompts on the last page, but you're going to click sign up, create everything you need to create, leave art, and then come back in and use your login username and password, and then you'll be good to go. And there's a first phrase on the asterisk that says, please use your created NHMCLE credentials to log in. For the time being, you need to have a username and password in art. When we get to the consolidation, it will be a little bit smoother. A couple of items, and there's a precaution in the red box. Usernames and passwords are case sensitive. So if I were logging in, my name is Carol Brooks, and I were to put in capital C, small case AROL, capital B, I've got to keep that same system the next time I log in. Passwords are also case sensitive, but you have to have at least 6 characters, and at least one of them needs to be a capital. So that is also sensitive. So if you're passing on your password to someone else, let them know what's capital, what's lowercase, and what the situation is. Are there any questions on this page? If you have login issues, there is on the primary NHMCLE page art troubleshooting resources, and I can say that for most people using Google Chrome or Mozilla Firefox, the user experience is very good. If you're on an Internet Explorer program, and Sue Bergeron mentioned you need 11 plus, please know that sometimes your user experience is not as good. Sometimes Internet Explorer will leave out certain data for your visual field. It hasn't gone away, we can see it, but when someone calls us and said, I can't see my new course I put in, it's because most likely it could be Internet Explorer. And for those of you who may be on government computers or a firm with high security, and you can't get in, you may want to use another computer, your home computer, and try to get in and see if you have a better experience. Sometimes the protective layers in a company, firm, or government computer can mar your user experience, so to speak. So try a different computer. Any questions? Okay, cruising along. We're getting through those high weeds. We should be able now to get to, once you've logged in and used your username and password, your key to the fact that you have used the right username and password is that you will see this page. We call it the My Record page. It always defaults to the current reporting year, and you will see just underneath the bar member ID box, there is a box with an arrow that says 215 to 216. That is the current reporting year, and ART always defaults to that when you open up your ART account. If you want to see a prior reporting year, you'll notice there's a small arrow. Click on that, pull down, and you can see the 2014-2015, which was the inaugural year for ART. It won't go back any further than that because that was the old pink and white certificates that you would get by U.S. Postal Service. ART will populate your bar ID and your name and make sure that that is you. Occasionally we have members who put in a bar ID that's maybe a couple digits from their own and maybe a similar name. There are a lot of Irish names or Scottish names with MC, so make sure that this is you that's showing or the attorney you're working for. The next item I want to just have you look at, you will see that there's a section labeled A, B, and C. The My Record page is made up of 3 sections, and I'll go through each one just briefly. The first one is A. This is the beginning balance for the current reporting year, July 1st of June 30th, 2015 was the end of the old year, and whatever your credit status was at the end of the last reporting year is your beginning balance for the current reporting year. And if you're unsure of what that might be and you reported last year, go to the prior year and pull down that arrow and take a look at the sections there. And if you have questions, certainly call us. You will see under Section A that there are 3 sections within it. There's a total minutes section that amounts to 340 minutes. ART calculates everything in minutes, and you need to enter any courses you take in minutes. The minimum number of minutes you can enter is 30 minutes. If you enter 1.5 credit hours, ART won't know what you're talking about and won't take it. 1.5 hours would have to be 90 minutes. So everything is done in minutes. It's your minutes of actual attendance. In this case, total minutes from last year was 340. Last year, carryover of 60 minutes, carried over for ethics. And then you'll see on the far right, live minutes, the carryover was 240. So this person actually had carryover from the prior reporting year. Section B. Oh, and I should mention on Section A, because many people ask this, if you had met all your requirements last year but had no carryover, you would start out with 0 in each of those 3 categories in A. If you hadn't finished all your requirements by June 30th, 2015, which is the last date of the last year, you would see negative numbers in that section. And that would mean you'd have to take courses in the following year to make those up to reach compliance for the last year. And your key to whether or not you've eliminated all negative minutes for the prior year is that negative numbers would disappear in Section C, which we'll get to in a second. Section B is the current listing for the reporting year, July 1st, 15 to June 30th, 16, of all the courses you have attended and entered. And these would include courses you may have taken from the New Hampshire Bar CLE program. The bar will enter courses directly into your art account within 30 days or less, usually less. But if you take a course on June 29th or 30th, you may need to wait a couple of days for that to assimilate. The bar will be entering courses very quickly at the end of the reporting year, but look for those. And those would count for the current year. You will see in that B section there are a number of categories in blue, and I just want to call your attention to some of those quickly. The date you attended the course will always show up. Art will record the date you entered the course. So if you took a course today but didn't enter it until October 1st, later this year, Art would make a note of that, and you would be entering a course after the late fees had occurred. So be aware that your date of entry to avoid any late fees should be by midnight, July 31st, because late fees will start on August 1st and after this year. The next category is the course name. The next one is the course provider who offered the course. The next is setting type. And take a look at that. Both the courses were classroom live in this case, but if you listen to that tax CD in your car going to Coas County, it will show up as non-live because that particular course would be a non-live course and it would register that. And that's meaningful in a second. We'll get to that. The next subject is content type or subject matter, and there's only two types of subject matter that you can take. Ethics and non-ethics. We used to call non-ethics general, but they're either ethics or non-ethics, and Art wants to know how many of both you have. Ethics especially, because you need 120 minutes of it, and non-ethics because that can go to your 720-minute total as well. The next area is the actual teaching time and additional minutes for teaching. And there is information that we can provide you if you have teaching credits on the new entry page, and I'll address that in a minute. The last category on the right is total time, and that's a total time of ethics or non-ethics is shown there. Right above that, you'll see a refresh button, and I just want you to circle that on your page because we're going to need to talk about that in a second. The refresh button will refresh any data that have gone into your account, and perhaps the My Record page hasn't caught up to it yet, but we'll talk about that in a minute.
Where is that?
Look on the blue-gray bar in Section B to the far right, right above total time. Little box that says refresh. The question was, where's the refresh button? The last section is Section C. Section C is your tally that you'll need to attend to know whether or not you've met your requirements. It contains the total minutes for the current reporting period, and that's the July 1st, 2015 to June 30th, 2016, and that total section is for all categories. Couple of precautions. You'll see on the far right the live minutes, and you need a minimum of 360. Remember the rule, at least a minimum of 6 hours or 360 minutes have to be in a live course setting. That's the course setting. And here, this person has 560. They have met and exceeded the 360 for the year. And the question we had earlier is, the requirement is shown in the minimum on that live section at the bottom. 360 is needed, 560 is showing, there's an excess of 200, those will carry forward to the next year. Carries forward only to the extent of the cap, in this case, 360. So your minimums for the year are also the cap for the carryover to the next year. Okay? And then we had that question earlier.
I
Joe?
do want to mention that it doesn't get counted again in the total. It's only for that live requirement. If you did 12 live credits this year, it will carry what the qualification, what the requirement is, but it won't go in the total because it's already been counted in the total for the previous year. I know it's complicated, but.
No, and I'm going to demonstrate that in a minute with a scenario, so hang on to that thought, if you would. Then under section C, on the left-hand side, you'll see two totals, ethics minutes, minimum needed 120. This person has met that 120, so there is no carryover because they haven't exceeded 120, and the cap is 120. Total minutes is a total in this section of ethics minutes and non-ethics, we also call it general, that you have taken during the year. And in section C, the primary way to count your minutes is that if we take ethics in section A, if you look, it says 60 minutes of ethics in section A on this sheet. That 60 minutes of ethics is added to section B's ethics, which amount to 60 in that blue-gray area. That amounts to 120, and Art totals up those ethics minutes of 120 at the bottom. So section A for each category plus section B for each individual category equals section C. Now, we had a question on that, and this is where I get to do my demo. So you probably have wondered, why isn't the live category entered into the total minutes on the other side? They're different. If you were to take your pen or pencil and draw a line between the live course setting on the right and the ethics and total minutes in section C on the left, that's the Great Wall of China. Art counts each course you take for what it is. And, yeah, if you hold those up, that'd be great. And you'll see that live is on the right, as on your art page, and totals for ethics and non-ethics right here.
Could you move your microphone towards
I
you?
could.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just so it's close enough.
Okay, good, thank you. For those of you who've been to kindergarten, college, law school, post-grad, we all know that professors, teachers talk about, well, what we're talking about is apples and oranges. Art likes apples and oranges. Art especially likes green apples. They're his favorite. And if you take an ethics course, in this scenario, Art considers the ethics course a green apple. If you take an ethics course and it happens to be a live ethics course, live course setting, Art attaches an orange to it. The orange credit for live goes in the live bucket in Art on my record page, and the ethics subject matter goes into the section on the left-hand side. Red apples, favorite of Art, they're non-ethics, right? Non-ethics is a subject matter, and if you take a non-ethics course, tax, and it's a live course, because now you've taken it from members of the bar that deal with the tax court, you get a red apple in the subject matter, and you get a live orange in the live orange counter. Next, pick bankruptcy, non-ethics, most of the time. So non-ethics bankruptcy course you take, but it's in a non-live setting. It's another CD, and this time you're going to Hillsborough County Superior Court. So it goes in the subject matter, but there's no live counter because it's non-live. And you take another course, perhaps this time it's on contract law, and it is also a recording. It's non-live, and so you get credit for for the subject matter, but there's no live. Bottom line, you can't mix apples and oranges in art, okay? You can't. It's not how it works. The oranges, 2 of them, call them 2 credits or 60 minutes each, are counted.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Counted in art in the live minutes at the total at the bottom of section C. You all with me so far? Okay, good. I know it's all fruit, but. And because I showed you each time I put something in these categories, these are ethics and non-ethics. Some of them are live, some of them are non-live, but they count toward the total because they're subject matter. And that's how Art's My Record page works in counting the 2. So you cannot mix live on the right and add it to your total on the left. How did we do? You with me? Okay, good, good. It's a very common question, and when somebody has less than 720 minutes on the section C of the My Record page, but they've taken, with carryover from last year, they've taken 900 live minutes. They want to add that 900 over there on the other side, but you can't do it because it's a separate counter. It's oranges. All right, moving on. You attend a course, and it's a bar course, so we've already noted that the bar CLE department, which is different from the department of the Supreme Court's NHMCLE, will enter the course within 30 days, usually less, and amazingly less at this time of the year. If you attend a course that is not a bar CLE course, you attend it, but you're not done. If you want it to count for your CLE record, you need to enter it into ART, and that's what you will find on the new entry page, and we divided it into 2 screens. The new entry page has a number of 8 key items in writing at the top, all important. Basically, you need to make sure you get all the credits and all the categories that you need to meet Rule 53. And when you've met all of those, and it shows in Section C of your My Record page, then you can file the affidavit of compliance and be done with the current reporting year. A couple of other notes. Because the bar will enter courses for you that you take within 30 days, usually less, you will find that you can't enter bar courses, and if for some reason you spell a New Hampshire bar course a very different way from NH bar, we do run duplicate reports, and we can see that. We'll contact you and say, it's already in there, and we need to delete the duplicate entry that you made. So it's a safeguard for you to make sure that you have what you need. You'll also notice on this particular section of the CLE activity page, new entry page, that the very last item says click on any question mark. They're very light gray and they occur in a number of sections and provide, when you're prompted to enter information, for instance, after you've the member ID and name will show up all by itself. Oops. This is the bottom half of the new entry page. Your bar ID and member name will show up once you've logged in and self-populate, but you will need to enter your non-bar course here. And a big tip that we have at NHMCLE is to say, take that attendance certificate that you have from the course you attended. It will give you the information you're going to need, the course name, the provider name, what they were offering you, which would have been, let's say, 2 hours or 120 minutes of ethics and 4 hours of non-ethics or general. Sometimes they stated 4 hours, including 2 hours of ethics, which means you've got 2 general and 2 ethics. So read it carefully. And if you are going to have your admin person assist you on entry, if you have that attendance certificate and you had to leave early to go to an emergency court hearing, please mark up your attendance certificate so your admin person knows the actual minutes you did attend, rather than find out, oh, I didn't go to all 6 hours of a CLE, I only went to 4, and I need to reduce the numbers. But we have a way to correct that when we get to that page.
Carol, I just wanted to chime in here. About a third of our members now work outside of New Hampshire, mostly in New England, and there are other providers in New England. The Massachusetts CLE is a big provider for New Hampshire lawyers. You need to understand that they don't have a rule down there, and they put their credits at 50-minute hours. New Hampshire goes by a 60-minute hour. I've talked to them many times and asked them if they could please list either the 50-minute hour or the 60-minute hour, both on the slip. The ABA does it. If any of you take an ABA course, they'll tell you. One of the reasons we went to minutes is because everybody had a different definition of an hour. And Rhode Island, I think, has a 55-minute hour. So it's like everybody has a different hour. New Hampshire goes on a 60-minute hour, and it has for a very long time. And so when if you go to a Mass CLE program, you need to multiply that by 50 minutes to get your minutes of, or take the agenda and just count the number of minutes in the, that you were instructed, because those are things that will be picked up in audits, which they will be doing. We're not going to be checking everything, but they will be picked up in audits. So that's the warning right there, because there are a lot of providers, and I forget what Maine is. I think they're a 50-minute hour, but I'm not sure.
I think we're surrounded by 50-minute
Yeah,
hour
yeah.
states in which they may say you get 2 credits, but if it's a 50-minute hour, actual attendance time in minutes is the only thing you need to modify, to remember or mark on your attendance sheet, especially if you didn't stay for the full program. And then keep that attendance sheet in your file, along with any course materials. By the rule, for 2 years, in case you are audited, you have the information that you needed. All of the information on the new entry page is self-prompting, and as I mentioned, for many of those boxes, you will see a question mark. So if you aren't sure what the course setting was, you can pull down that question mark. And speaking of that, if you look at qualifying course information, the next subcategory says program provider, and then qualifying course name, and then course setting type. The box did not copy well, but there is a box for course setting type. If you complete the other 3 sides of the box, or 2 sides, you will find a pull-down list of different types of live programs, different types of non-live programs. And if you're teaching a course and it was in a live context, you will also see a box show up that will be prompting the teaching credits on that. Total minutes, entry of ethics under time attended. Make sure you have the right category that you're entering your ethics minutes for. That's the first box. And the non-ethics as minutes in the second. Again, if you try to enter 1.5 credit hours, Art will not understand. It won't even ask for apples and oranges. It's just not going to compute. So minutes is what you need to enter. When you get through and feel you've reviewed everything and everything is exactly the way you want it, at the very bottom of the page, you will see a box to attest, and when you submit that, it becomes part of your Art record, and it will show up on my record page within a few seconds. So if you're faster at the clicker than Art, it may not show up on the first click, but you can go to my record page to see it. Another comment here, there's comments in special circumstances. We have developed a special section on the NHMCLE webpage for details and guides for a number of those items that are listed under special circumstances, including publication, application, and information for you. Any questions on the new entry page? All right, the next page is the correcting an Art entry. This will go quickly. For the current year, we have a red arrow pointing to the power of persuasion. If you entered 60 minutes of ethics, which is shown there, and you really attended 50 and you need to make the correction, double-click on the course name. It will bring you to the next page. The next page is a pop-up screen that appears on top of my record page, and it will allow you to reduce the number of minutes from 60 and enter 50. And if 120 was the number of non-ethics minutes that were entered, and that's incorrect, it should be 0, you can minus that out and enter 0. At the end, you see in the bottom right-hand corner, update member activity. That member activity will be updated and will bring you back to the My Record page. When you get to that My Record page, you will find that information corrected in section B, and your totals, if they haven't been corrected, click on the refresh button that I mentioned earlier on the My Record page at the right of section B, and that will refresh all of your data and bring you to a correct record as to the correction. If you have other corrections that were made, you entered a course taking the Ferris wheel at Disneyland, and you realize later, no, that really wasn't CLE worthy, I need to delete it all, contact us, we'll help you with that. And wish you good luck at your next Disneyland visit. The next area is the affidavit zone, and we're almost done. We're at the edge of the swamp or the marsh. We're getting there. You will find that you need, at the end of the year, to assess your status for CLE credits. Look at the bottom of this My Record page, and you will see 90 minutes of ethics where the minimum required is 120. This person needs 30 more ethics. You will see that they've reached 720 total, which is ethics and non-ethics, and so they've met the minimum. Not a problem there. Go over to the right and look at the live category, and the person needs a minimum of 360 and has earned 320. They need 40 more. You can do the math there, or if you click on affidavit on the toolbar, you will find that ART produces something that's not an affidavit. It says, by the way, you still need, and ART will calculate what you need, 30 more minutes of ethics, 40 more minutes of live. Now you know what you can do, attend and take those courses, but here's a tip. In this case, the person has already earned the total that they needed towards 720. And you could combine, you could take an ethics course for 40 minutes or take one for 60, it's probably easier to find. Take an ethics course for 60 minutes and take it in a live course setting. When you do that, you will resolve the shortage in both of those categories. So keep in mind, a course can have a characteristic of its subject as well as its course setting. So we recommend that. And any questions on this part? Yes, we have one right here.
I just wanted to clarify that any extra credits you might have will automatically carry over in the system. You don't have to do anything to
You don't
cause
need to
that
do
happen.
anything. The system is set up so that at midnight on June 30th, if you have any credits that can carry over in excess of what you needed, ART will be churning all night long on the morning of July 1st and will present, hopefully not all 5,500 people go there at 8 o'clock in the morning, but theoretically, ART will have your new year showing, so My Record page will default to the 16-17 year, and any of your carryover will now show in Section A of the next year.
Can I ask a second question? Could
Sure.
you just clarify the sort of grace period for?
Sure. Under the current rule, the reporting year still ends June 30th to get your credits. With the new system of 311, everything is technically due by July 1st. And as we understand, the court is planning to have a grace period run 30 days until midnight of July 31st, and anyone who is in non-compliant for credits or filing the affidavit in terms of NHMCLE will, on August 1st, receive a late fee. And then there's a second late fee date, August 31st at midnight. So on September 1st, another set of late fees would be assessed if you're still non-compliant then. That's what we understand, yeah.
2 total, and then what happens?
And
You
then
go to the court.
mid-September, the court asks that the NHMCLE board reports to the court those people who are still non-compliant.
Yeah,
All right,
excellent.
good question. So on the last screen, the last two, if you look at section C at the bottom of that My Record page, you will see in the ethics, total, and live, this person has exceeded all of the minimums required in that section, in those 3 sections. And in the live section, the person is exceeded by 360. They get to carry over 360, but no more. And again, if you took 12,000 live courses, only 360 of those live minutes will go forward. You could take everything in the world in ethics if you wish, but only 120 would carry forward if they're over the 120. And the same with 720. So this person can confirm just by looking at section C that they have met those credit requirements. Go to the toolbar that's marked in red at the top to file your affidavit because the minimums have been reached or exceeded. And what you will see come June 1st, shortly thereafter, will be your affidavit. It does appear with your bar ID and your name on the very last page, and your name will be inserted where attorney's name shows up, and you will be attesting to the fact that the courses were qualified, complete, accurate, meet the requirements of Rule 53, that you've completed or exceeded the minimums, and as shown on your My Record page. Review that. If there's any questions, don't click Submit, but when you check the box and click Submit, you will have submitted your affidavit. And at that point, you can then print out your affidavit for records in your office. You don't need to send it anywhere. And you can also print out the reporting year that you've just completed and keep that with your affidavit, and you're done. And your dashboard, once this is all done, within 48 hours or less, is going to show green, the magic number. If it still shows red, it may be 48 hours hasn't passed, or it may be, if you haven't completed all the credits, the affidavit won't pop up. It'll still tell you what you need. So with that, any questions on this last portion? Yes, we have one up here, and one back here.
Rule 53 says ethics and/or professionalism. Could you give me some examples of professionalism or define professionalism?
Sure. And ethics and professionalism in Rule 53 does have some other categories. And the categories could be professionalism of attorneys in dealing with various aspects of the legal practice, but not necessarily accounting. Joe, can you fill
It's
in?
actually in the rule, and I don't think I have that with me. It includes substance abuse training, for legal professionals. We do a professionalism day every year, and it's more how to be professional to each other, civility, those types of things. So most people will identify it as a professionalism course. It doesn't have to be straight ethics. It has to be nice to everybody. Usually a court program, if they're dealing with candor towards the tribunal, those types of things. So, there are a number of things that do qualify.
And to find Rule 53, if you go to the NHMCLE webpage, that very bottom section has a link to get to the current Rule 53 and the regulation where it's spelled out in greater detail. Our NHMCLE,
Microphone.
If you have a question as to whether or not that applies in the professionalism category, we can contact you and you would verify it.
I cannot verify in the NHMCLE office that a particular course is approved by Rule 53, but our function is to provide the areas of the rule and the language in the sections that will help give you that answer. In most cases, the questions we've had on, is it ethics or professionalism, does it count, are easily found within the rule, and we're your guide to get you there. Any question here?
Much along those lines, is there a way to tell if a course that's not originally designated as a CLE can get you CLE credits?
Rule 53 currently provides some backup and casts some light on that. If a course is taken and it's not strictly offered for continuing legal education, you need to assess whether, even though it's not offered for continuing legal, does it have some of the other qualifying criteria? And Rule 53 does have some guidelines for that. And if you want to send us an email, we'll take you on a tour through that.
We actually have a checklist on the website that is available that tells you what is needed in a course, but that's a really good question. The example I can give you is when we used to process 12,000 applications from people, from members and sponsors every year. The staff would approve most of them, and then some that were questionable would go to the board. And one that an inexperienced person had thought should go to the board, when I looked at it, I said, no, that'd probably be good. And it was a program on refrigeration units catching on fire. And it was by this fire expert. And I said a products liability lawyer would benefit from learning that. So you have to think about it, and if it's going to make you, better in your practice, I mean, you got to be careful. Something like that's defendable to the board if you were going to go before an audit. As long as you can defend it in an audit, which they haven't done in years because we used to check everything. Now they will do it. Then, you should be okay.
We've had a number of attorneys use that how to qualify checklist for any course they go to. They have multiple copies, they take it with them, or review it when they get back from the course, and check off the items that that particular course has met. And you can put that in your file. In the event of an audit, you already have your rationale for why it met the rule, or if you discard it, why it didn't, and not enter it into art. Yes?
Last year, there was an additional $10 fee for per attorney for that. That's not covered on here. Is that still in effect, or
It's going to be
where do we
part
do
of the
that?
Supreme Court fees and paid with the New Hampshire bar dues and Supreme Court fees, yes.
Yes, we streamline it for a little bit of ease.
Yeah, yeah.
That was one of the big problems last year.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah.
And, yes.
So I'm going to try this question one more time.
Okay.
Just word it differently.
Okay.
Is it possible to get 100% of credits for a year with a roll or a roll forward or?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
So
If-
none of the minutes have to be done in that calendar year?
Correct,
Okay.
correct. So if you get, instead of 120 for ethics, 240, instead of 720 for your total of ethics, non-ethics, you get twice that. And if you take 720 live, that meets a 360, everything rolls over, you start Section A with the next year with a full boat.
Yeah, and it can happen like every other year because you wouldn't be able to carry it over 2 years.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Thank you all for going through the hip weight or less water. I appreciate your attention, and let us know at NHMCLE if you have any individual questions. We'd be glad to help you.
And if everyone could please fill out the survey before you leave, that would be great, and just leave it at the table. Thank you so much. I hope this was helpful.